To be honest, this was the most insane decision of my life. I literally left everything behind to go and join a spiritual community in the northern mountains of Vermont, to go and train like a monk, because the world is falling apart. And I hate to say it, I hate to sound like a doomer. I hate to sound like a boomer, a doomer, some sort of like end of the world crazy person. I'm not trying to sound that way. But the world is totally falling apart. Climate change, the mother of all final bosses, artificial intelligence, political turmoil. The political landscape in the United States is just slowly moving towards fascism. There is oligarchic momentum taking place. There's this massive wealth divide forming, and the 1% just keep getting more and more rich, while the bottom 99% keep getting poor. The US dollar is losing its value. 3 years ago, I was at my wit's end, seeing all of this take place and had no idea what to do about it. And I'm, to some extent, still in that headspace. But it was getting to the point where I was not able to function in society anymore. The problem with the world is that there's an enormous amount of lying taking place. The problem with the world is that there are systems carefully designed to capture our attention and move it away from the things that actually matter in our lives. That's the problem. Society could be beautiful. Civilization could be beautiful. We could take care of the earth. We could take care of each other. We could emphasize care for our fellow man rather than creating a system where it is an acceptable outcome to be homeless, dying on the street without access to resources or medical care or community. That's a viable outcome, at least in the United States. And this isn't even to mention the terrible conditions that capitalism, first world capitalism, is built off of for third world countries. Now, again, I'm not trying to just sound like this nihilistic, depressed person, but the reason I left my life behind was that it was getting to the point where it was unavoidable to face these realities that we all live in. And the only way forward that I could find was to go inwards, to go and live in a spiritual community, to meditate, to deeply examine my own mind, to take responsibility for my own mind, my own suffering, my own happiness, my own clarity, and then examine what to do moving forward. And that's what I want to talk about in this video. It's not necessarily about me specifically, but it's actually about all of us. One of the biggest illusions that the world encourages is that we as individuals do not have power. And that's something that I've had to deeply examine as I've meditated, as I lived in a spiritual community, day in and day out, focusing on the mind. So let's set this thing about power aside for a moment. It's very important, and we'll pick it back up in a moment. But one of the consequences of very intensive meditation training is that you do start to see the dynamics of mind, these faculties of sovereignty, resiliency, embodiment. All of this starts to come online as the mind not only begins to clarify, but as a result of sitting practice anyways, and practicing in motion and doing mindful activities like mindfulness of walking, or just in daily activities like cleaning dishes, sweeping, tending to the ground, tending to the earth, there's a movement from mind being up here, the energy centers in our head, to mind reintegrating with the body. And this impact of meditation compounds over time. It accelerates over time. There's a non-linear growth curve to meditation. I used to think of meditation as being this like A to Z kind of step 1, 2, 3 thing that happens over time in a linear fashion, but it doesn't work that way. It's multidimensional, it's non-linear, it's exponential, and then can have very long periods of stagnation, where it feels like the practice is not working. You feel like, man, I'm not sure if I am even doing this correctly anymore because nothing good is happening. And then these sometimes explosive moments, these explosive watershed moments, where the practice just completely accelerates and suddenly new depths are now realized and can then be lived from in an embodied way. All of this happens from hardcore meditation. And my sense, I don't know for sure, but my sense is that when you really push the edge, your particular edge with the practice of meditation, all of the complexity and chaos that the practice goes through when it unfolds also compounds and accelerates. So it becomes more unpredictable what's happening as we push harder and harder with our particular edge of meditation. So as we go really intense at this practice, again and again and again, we begin to realize that the mind is the foundation of reality. That is how the whole world springs into existence from our direct experience. And so our experience of the world is directly impacted by the quality of our mind. The more clear we are, the more clear the world is. The happier we are, the happier the world is. The more chaotic we are internally, the more chaotic that the world is. We see this again and again and again and again and again at deeper and deeper levels and more subtle levels as well. Ways that we couldn't have predicted that our minds are impacting our perception and view of reality. We begin to see, oh my God, I didn't realize that I was fighting the world in this way until the practice, meditation, released that tension, released that resistance, and now there's a new kind of flow that I'm experiencing as I move through the world. Now, what does this have to do with power? When we adopt beliefs and views around our own disempowerment, we become less powerful. And I know that just sounds so simple and obvious, but bear with me. We have systems of control, capitalism, the way that capitalism is unfolding, social dynamics, social norms, cultural norms, societal structures, the infrastructure for how resources move throughout our communities. All of this plays into a certain kind of conditioning wherein it really feels like we're these tiny little beings existing in this big world, and we don't really have much power over our government, over our systems, or much at all. From a certain point of view, this could be considered true. But while I was in the monastery, again, you see that actually, we're going to get a little existential here, but actually this present moment, the emergence of this moment, is the only location throughout space and time where real power could occur, where real impact, influence could take place. All of the power that we will ever have exists in this moment. And the ways that we are acting out in the world, behaving, interacting with our friends, community members, our physical spaces, ourselves, all of that is a function of our power, our sovereignty. When we feel disempowered, we behave in disempowered ways, and all of the relationships around us suffer as a result. But the thing that's needed now, more than ever, the thing that I saw very deeply while at the monastery, was that there needs to be a decentralized emergence of individual sovereignty and resiliency on a relationship to relationship level. A ground up emergence rather than a top down hierarchical domination, which is how power flows through society right now. There is the unlikely scenario that the tech bros in Silicon Valley, Mark Zuckerberg, Elon Musk, Sam Altman, Jeff Bezos, all those guys are going to one day have an awakening, a spontaneous awakening, and suddenly their hearts will be filled with compassion, and the greed that runs their lives will suddenly dissolve, and they'll change their ways, and everyone will benefit as a result. Not likely, though. Not likely. Most likely, the only way that humanity is going to get through this is if every individual takes personal responsibility for their own life, for their own mind, for their own relationship, and serves their communities directly, grounded in the earth, grounded in actual relationship, not digital landscapes, not virtual realities, not even artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is not going to solve this. Artificial intelligence is not going to give you the sovereignty of your own mind back to you. That's done through spiritual practice. That's done through spiritual training. It has to be something that we all take responsibility for, or at least enough people take responsibility for. And here's the thing, even if no one else takes responsibility for their own minds, let's say that just a tiny fraction of the population decides that spiritual training or meditation or going inwards is in fact a rational direction to go in response to planetary crisis, even if it's just a small percentage of people who make that move, that's still better than nothing. And for those individuals who make that move, that's still the only option, truly, that we have. Because even within the disintegration, the uncertainty, the insecurity of modern humanity, of the modern systems of humanity, spirituality moves in a direction towards true happiness, true resiliency, true letting go, true peace, even in the face of the world falling apart. That's where this path goes. And so really, no matter what, whether the motivation is, I want to help the world, I want to help myself and be happier, I want to help my friends and family, I want to live a good life, no matter what, the direction actually is one of going within. What can we do in response to planetary crisis as individuals, not in positions of power? We can actually discover true power. We can discover that true power is an emergent phenomena, is an emergence of this present moment, and that's actually the only place that it exists. Rather than getting caught with the magnetism of social media, the ways that AI's algorithms have been designed, financially incentivized, and researched deeply to capture our attention, to sway our opinions, to activate our nervous systems, rather than being caught in all of that digital confusion, we see this mind, this life, these relationships. That's where I have power. That's where I can make a change. And I wish I could communicate or somehow psychically transmit the significance of that through this video. My sense is that some people watching that would be deeply dissatisfied with that answer. That's not good enough. I have to make change. If it's not big change, it doesn't matter. And this is where this existential view is so important. Because until we see that power, that influence, that happiness, that peace can only ever emerge as a function of the present moment, we will never see the foundations of widespread collective happiness on Earth. We will never see that the ultimate direction that humanity is going to have to go to solve all of these issues is inside. Obviously, we're going to have to make systems changes. We're going to have to restructure the economy so that people aren't being taken advantage of. Obviously, we're going to have a more sustainable economic network so that we're not destroying the earth in order to fund our lifestyle, our destructive collective lifestyle. Obviously, we're going to have to stop committing genocide. I'm not saying that there's not external changes that need to be made. Of course there are. But those changes must rest on a foundation of peace of mind. And that is where the spiritual path comes into play. And that was the biggest takeaway that I gained from being at the monastery. And for that, I am deeply, deeply grateful. It was an enormously transformative period of my life. It was beautiful. It was the hardest thing I've ever done, and I would highly recommend you go do it. Not necessarily at that place, but to go and train in a monastic container is one of the best things that you can ever do with your life. Because mind is the foundation, because mind is chief, every single relationship that you now have, every single being that you now interact with is going to directly be impacted by your meditation practice. Meditation is the one thing that directly works on the individual mind. It's like the one practice where the purification of mind is the primary purpose. The clarification of mind, the cultivation of mind is the primary purpose. There's nothing else we're doing in meditation other than working on the mind. And because of that, everything that we do, every being we interact with, every relationship we have, every decision we make is now deeply impacted by the practice. And therefore, I would highly recommend that you try to spend time in a monastic container. And if you can't, finding community members in your community, in your city, your town, your location to practice with. Finding Sangha, spiritual community. Finding a teacher, finding someone that you truly connect with who can help guide you on this path. Meditation is hard. It's fucking hard. It's one of the hardest things you will ever do. Might be the hardest thing that anyone can do. And it's not always straightforward. And it's a very individualistic path. And so finding a teacher you connect with who can help guide you in a customized, specific way is invaluable. Finding these support networks to engage in this practice is key. You don't necessarily have to give up your whole life and live like a monk. You can do that, and you will benefit from it, but you don't have to do that. Really, the key to all of this, everything that I just said, is the daily consistency of a daily meditation practice, finding, interacting with community, on occasion at least, and working with a teacher. If you can do that, you're set. If you can find time to go into a retreat, to actually solely focus on meditation for, a week or more, and that's the only thing you do, even better. We're getting to a point now, though, where the only thing that makes sense is to live in accord with what really matters. And the biggest lesson I learned from training at the monastery, the training at the Monastic Academy for the Preservation of Life on Earth, is that meditation, more than anything I've ever discovered, helps us live in accord, live in integrity, live in coherence with what really matters. And when we live in accord with what really matters, we live the good life. We live a life that is of benefit for ourselves and others. That's all I got for now. If you need help with your meditation practice, please check out the link in the description, or I have a pinned comment as well down below that you can check out. It's a helpful guide that will help you just deepen your meditation practice with really clear strategies. I hope it can be a benefit for you. So if you do need help, check out that resource below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.